Hey, I want to thank everybody for joining me here at NJ Cigar Whiskey. Today. We're going to do, for the whiskey portion, Waterford Irish Single Malt. And for the cigar portion, we're going to be talking about the Drew Estate Undercrown Maduro. When we talk about the Waterford Irish Single Malt, it's got an interesting marketing ploy in that it's a whiskey that has what's called a single farm origin. So what does that mean? It means all the barley that's collected for the malt is collected from a single farm. For instance, this one was collected from a farm in Dunmore. And they have a code on the back that you can see here. Wrong place. And if you go to the website of Waterford and you put that code in, it'll actually give you some information about the farm that they run in Dunmore. I believe run by a guy named John Tynan. So just some interesting stuff. The real question is does all that single farm origin stuff, how does that impact the whiskey? And so this is a single malt. I believe it's been aged for about 5 years. I'll double check that. And so it's comparable to what the Teeling single malt would be. A Teeling single malt, Napogue Castle, Tyrconnell, these are all good Irish single malts. So this isn't going to necessarily reflect something like a Redbreast or a Green Spot, but we're going to check it out. And on the nose, it's very peppery, and it's got some of that honey and green apple. Ooh. It's very sweet on the tongue at first, and then, boy, you really get like a peppery spice kick. That actually really tingles. You can see the color. There's nothing, because it's the single farm origin. As a matter of fact, I think part of their marketing ploy is this idea of it's an organic whiskey. I think most of whiskeys are organic. But under that guise, there's not going to be any coloring. And you can see this has got a nice straw gold color. It reminds me a lot in look and on the nose of Teeling single malt, which I just drank last night. And it's got the honey sweetness of that Teeling, but this has a lot more pepper bang to it. So interesting whiskey, very interesting whiskey, a lot more complex than you think. We're going to move on in our next segment. Okay, so we talked about the whiskey, and we always do the whiskey first because if you start smoking a cigar before you taste the whiskey, I think you're going to miss some stuff. Here we've got the Drew Estate Undercrown Maduro, which in their marketing materials, interestingly enough, they kind of compare the Undercrown Maduro to the Liga Privada, number 9. And they're not saying they're the exact same thing, because they're not. But they do say that they, at least in their marketing material when it comes in the box, that the blends are almost the same, and it's the aging process that's slightly different. So we're going to give this a try and see if Drew Estate is telling the truth. I've already clipped it, and it came with a band on the foot that I took off, and I took off camera because it's kind of a pain. Sometimes you ruin the bottom end of the cigar when you're trying to get it off. Luckily, it didn't happen this time around. Of course, I'm filming on a day that it's windy. Ooh. So off the light, it's very chocolatey. Deep earth. When you get a look at the cigar, you can see it's got tight but very visible seams. Not too many imperfections in the wrapper. It's very firmly packed. I mean, it feels like an older cigar. You can see the smoke output is pretty significant. You can get that deep earth, cocoa, like Baker's cocoa. Very good cigar, very good start. So we're gonna get into that cigar, and then we're gonna pair it up with the whiskey to see how the whiskey holds up against the cigar. We'll be back just a little bit. Look at that smoke. So this is typical of a Drew Estate. Drew Estate cigars, in my opinion, always have great smoke output, and this does not disappoint. The smoke is clingy. It's kind of thick, and definitely a flavor bomb. Not a spice bomb, but a flavor bomb. In the first third, I would call and say the strength. It's a medium strength. It will probably ramp up as we go on, but flavor, it is a full flavored cigar. You do have to, and you can see the burn. Pretty good burn. I mean, flavor wise, again, you're talking about the deep earth, the cocoa, these very dark, rich flavors. Definitely a cigar you have after a meal. So now we kick over to the Waterford. I went and checked out their website. I put in the code. There's going to be a picture up right here. And definitely it's an interesting look. It's this barley was harvested in August 2017. The whiskey was aged for 3 years and 11 months. So I said I thought it was around 5ish. I was off by about a year. And it tastes a little young. I mean, you can tell it. So it's 50% alcohol by volume, and you can definitely see the legs on that glass. So it's a rich whiskey, but it's young, and I think they would have done themselves a little bit of of a favor by letting it age just a little longer. And it'll be interesting to see the Waterford line of whiskeys as they move along. Maybe they'll start to release older whiskeys. Of course, I can't even imagine what that price point will be. But I think they have a really good chance of being really good. With the cigar, it pulls out a little more of the sweetness, a little more of that honey, a little more of the classic Irish single malt that you get. And then you get that pepper. As a matter of fact, I'm getting more of a zing out of the whiskey than I am out of the cigar, which is kind of interesting. So that's where we're at at about 1/3 point. We're about 45 minutes in, and you can see burns great. The ash is holding on. It's falling off in large chunks. So excellent construction. Again, just you can see the smoke pouring off of it. Flavor wise, get notes of coffee now, like a black coffee. The deep earth is kind of fallen off for me, but that chocolate's still there. This is very chocolatey. And a little bit nutty on the retrohale. The blends here, this is a Mexican San Andreas wrapper with a Nicaraguan and Brazilian tobaccos as the filler, and an Ecuadorian Habano binder. And so quite the blend there. We'll go back to the Waterford. Boy, I have to say it's gotten better as it's sat in my glass and opened up a little bit. Still peppery. Still think it could have used some age, a little bit, maybe a couple more years. But again, I looked up the Waterford Distillery. It was actually built in 2004 by Diageo. It was converted into a distiller for distillation in 2015, and the guy by the name of Mark Rainier, who I believe was also responsible for the Renaissance of Bruichladdich, I believe he's running the show now. And as they put it, they want to really emphasize the single and single malt, which is why it's the single farm and the single distillery, and the single water source. Sorry about that. So it's definitely, they ran their first whiskey in 2016, and I think that I wouldn't be surprised again as they start to be able to release more aged whiskeys. I think that they have the potential for a really fantastic. I mean, this is good, but I just think it's going to be fantastic when they can age it out a little more. I also like to see them experiment with different woods. Right now, they're aging in French and American oak. They don't indicate whether or not it's American bourbon casks. It might be American new oak. Some of the experimentation, with the different, bourbon casks, sherry casks, again, I think will go a long way. I think that this is an exciting distillery to watch, as long as they don't price themselves out of the market. So we'll be back to finish this up, but I will tell you, the Undercrown is an absolute star. You can get these, and you see them on sale at like a Holtz or something. I strongly suggest you pick them up. They're about $10 a stick, and worth every penny. So we are about an hour and 15 minutes in, and we're getting to the band. This is the third chunk of ash. So I mean, the ash is coming off in pretty significant chunks. So the construction is flawless. I mean, you see the burn is almost razor sharp, and the ash holds on pretty, really well. And gotta show you this. I always like it when they do this kind of stuff. You've got a nice little kind of, printing on the back side of the label. I don't know. I just kind of find that kind of stuff interesting. Can't say enough about this cigar. I mean, when you're going to throw around the Liga Privada 9 in your marketing material, boy, you better be able to stand up to it, and this does. At a price point of about $10 to $12, if you can get a hold of one of these sticks, you should absolutely do it. If these flavor profiles are up your alley and you see them, every once in a while you'll see them go on sale at Holtz, you can buy a box for some reduced price, I would jump on it and keep it in your humidor, because this is a very satisfying smoke. Strength is ramped up to a medium to full. Flavors remain about the same, and very flavorful cigar from beginning to end. The one thing I'll tell you is, as it gets hotter, I wouldn't say that there's not really any pepper there, but you know, that earth is kind of returned. You know, that deep earth, that coffee, that cocoa flavors, I think, have been pretty consistent throughout. And smoke output, you know, exceptional. Just a pleasure to smoke. I'm going to turn this off and finish up that cigar off camera. And the Waterford. When you have a cigar like the Undercrown or a Liga 9, you have to be really careful about what kind of whiskeys you want to pair with it, because the cigar can really drown out a whiskey. And Irish whiskeys tend to be a little bit more delicate. And you could take like a Napogue Castle, and which is a great whiskey, and you could turn it into Tullamore Dew or Jameson, and there's nothing wrong with them, but you know, you lose some of the nuances if you pair them with an overly strong cigar. Yet I will tell you, the Waterford at its 50% is totally held up to the Undercrown. In fact, I think the Undercrown kind of brought out some of the sweeter notes, the honey. A little bit of lemon. Almost like a shortbread cookie. Here's what I'll say about the Waterford. I think it is a very good whiskey, and it is a bottle that I am going to keep in my collection. So when I finish this bottle, I don't know how long it'll take me to finish this bottle. I will keep it in my collection. I will go out and buy another one. I think it's fantastic that they have different farms. They run about one a week. 1 week is going to be, for instance, this was again the Dunmore. Then they'll run a different farm the next week, and the next week a different farm. And so you can collect different farms, you know, origins of the barley, if you really wanted to do that. I don't know I would go that far, but I will definitely keep Waterford in my collection as a special occasion whiskey. It's not an everyday sipper. But it's just really cool to have, and it's got a really great story. So in that vein, it's probably, you know, I would say it's worth the price, but if I was buying an everyday, I wouldn't be going with the Waterford. I would probably be going with the Teeling Single Pot, the Napogue Castles, the Tyrconnells, as more everyday sippers and things I'm also always going to keep in my liquor cabinet. Thanks for watching and hanging out here with N&J Cigar and Whiskey. Please don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and share buttons. And leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you want me to review. I have a couple things in mind. We still have to hit Redbreast 12 at some point. We've got Middleton Very Rare 2020. And we have a Drumshambo Irish Single Pot Still, which is another new Irish whiskey. We also have Rough Rider Bourbon. We have Filibuster Bourbon. Heaven's Door Kentucky Straight Bourbon, or actually I think it's just straight bourbon. Couple of interesting things to review. Let me know what you guys want to hear, and I will see you next time we post at N&J Cigar and Whiskey.